Hello, I'm Benjamin Moogk. I fell into this subject when British Pathé digitized its historical collection of film footage. One of the first pieces of footage I saw was a reel of film taken by Bill Grant soon after D-Day. Grant's slate can be seen in the footage and is a match to the slate he left to his family. The footage had been mislabeled as Anzio, but I recognized the distinctive Norman architecture of the town and matched the location to Engreny. This is when I decided to make contact with Dale Gervais. The film footage of the Canadian contribution to the invasion of Normandy is much greater than the few seconds we see every anniversary. What material still exists is scattered around the world in pieces and often lacks its original documentation that would tell us who, what, where, and when depicted in these moving images. In the vacuum of this information, there has been a lot of mythology. Some of the confusion about what is actually depicted in these films happened in June 1944, when the footage was first seen at a rush screening in London. However, there is enough documentation to reconstruct a true story behind most of these images. Above all the footage taken by and of Canadians that day is the footage taken by Sergeant Bill Grant. Grant's moving images were the first of D-Day seen around the world. The most complete copy of his footage is with the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration. The reel starts with his and Lieutenant photographer Frank Duberville's embarkation with the 14th Field Royal Canadian Artillery at Stokes Bay. We can see for ourselves their LCT on the right and the LCT that would carry Garth Webb and Marcel Ouimet on the left. Prints of some of Duberville's photographs taken on that day were found in England. One shows Webb standing on his gun control tank as the regiment forms up, but the negatives have proved elusive. The most recognizable shot in Grant's footage is the touchdown of his LCT in front of La Maison des Canadiens at Bernières-sur-Mer. In large part, it is this shot that has made the house so famous. The images by both Grant and Duberville gives us a very thorough coverage of one small part of Juno Beach. It also captures images that confirm the testimonies of many who were there and is a record of the lives of some of those who did not survive the war. The key to understanding what is in Grant's footage are the notes he took while he filmed, his handwritten dope sheets. They reveal the exact time, place, and names of people of whom we have records. One of these people, Jacques Martin, may still be alive. Grant's dope sheets also make explicit the drama that may go unnoticed in the silent footage. When Grant notes his camera is splashed by seawater because of an exploding German mine, Duberville photographs the cause, a carrier that had struck the mine. Grant writes, "My camera got soaked when a carrier and 5 men blew up beside me. I hope this film is okay." Testimony from Lieutenant James Arthur Warburton, commander of Easy Troop of the 14th Field, told of how the carrier was flipped over by the mine and how the occupants were trapped underneath and could not be saved. As we waded ashore in our vehicles, a Bren gun carrier moving along beside my tank hit a mine just in the water and turned over. I can remember vividly looking down from the turret of my tank as it happened, wondering vaguely what was going on. But this is the thing which struck me. Before I could even properly appreciate what had happened, half a dozen soldiers had rushed to that carrier in an effort to turn it right side up and free those trapped beneath. They didn't succeed, but I never felt alone in battle again, knowing that there were always men who would give a hand, that we were all, strangers or not, pals in the same boat. Among the many people we see in the photographs and footage by Duberville and Grant are the Martin and Grave families, who lived across from one another just up the road from La Maison des Canadiens. I have already mentioned the young son, Jacques Martin. His family is not directly identified in the records of the time, as his older brother was taken to work for the Germans under le service de travail obligatoire. His father was Paul Martin. On that day, journalists Ralph Allen and Marcel Ouimet interviewed Paul. Paul was a veteran of the First World War and had the foresight to dig a trench to protect his family for the inevitable day when the Allies would bombard their home. The home would burn to the ground, and his son, Jacques, would testify in later years about how their trench was almost run over by a mine flail tank. Marcel Ouimet describes his interview with the father, Paul, in his D-Day broadcast. "My witness said they were astonished to hear these boys from Quebec say, 'I am from Trois Pistoles,' and we laughed more when we asked them if they would be soon in Paris, and they answered, peut-être ben quoi. The neighbors across the street, the Grave family, owned l'Hôtel de la Belle Plage. The hotel is mentioned in several sources for serving wine to soldiers who were marching inland. Grant filmed two young women, Madeleine Martin, Paul Martin's daughter, and Micheline Grave, the hotel owner's daughter, serving wine from the window of the hotel and resisting the advances of the soldiers. Grant had them write out their names on his dope sheets. In later years, Mademoiselle Micheline Grave, who would become Madame Micheline Tranoy, would be interviewed several times, including by the CBC, for anniversaries of D-Day, as many veterans well remembered the hotel. Another story is that of Sergeant Rosaire Ganon of Le Régiment de la Chaudière. Grant and Duberville captured several images of Ganon as he kept inserting himself into the frame. Ganon's lively personality is evident with him smiling and joking with German prisoners. Ganon had persuaded the field security of the Royal Berkshires to release the civilians being held outside the Bernier rail station, including the Martin and Grave families. The last photo of Ganon before his death, days later, is a color transparency of him standing in front of l'Hôtel de la Belle Plage with Madeleine Grave and Paul Martin, both still wearing the same clothes they had on D-Day. One of the great finds is Grant's lost roll, picked up by Sergeant Brian O'Regan in the sands near Courceuil. The footage, taken on the 7th of June, is of Cozy's pillbox. The footage became misplaced with the Imperial War Museum, thus ensuring its survival. There is more footage of Canadians taken on that day. Some is familiar, like the three 100-foot Armistead rolls taken from three different LCAs landing in front of the house known as Les Hirondelles. The famous pat on the back is captured in the last second before one of these rolls runs out. Some footage is less familiar, like the footage taken aboard HMCS Algonquin by Kenneth Marthy and Richard Hoare. Some is recently found, like the fragments of color footage taken by Charlie Beddoe. Some remains lost, like the 400 feet of color footage taken by Sergeant Dave Reynolds of the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion, which would make it the first footage taken by an Allied cameraman in France on D-Day. There is so much more I want to tell you, but I've been asked to keep this short. I am grateful for the work of Dale Gervais and others, because without their hard work, we would not be able to tell you the story behind these images. Thank you.